strength. This Focus of the Month essay revolves around the idea of using the metaphor that we have in many different languages of being rooted. And because of our root system, we have strength. The strength is not only in our ability to resist, although that could be one way to have strength. So if you're in a balancing pose, to resist the forces that might pull you down or blow you over, that could be very important. But also a strong root system allows us to adapt. That is to say, to not be blown over, but to change the way in which our relationship to gravity is happening and still remain calm and a sense of poise inside. Root systems have these incredible abilities to communicate. So there might be, miles and miles of trees all communicating through these fungal root systems and networks underground, sharing resources, sending information. And that was meant to stand as a metaphor for satsang, this incredible interconnected web. And I know that maybe you haven't taken the teacher training, maybe you've been to a couple of yoga classes at Jivamukti, but maybe you've been there enough where you made a friend. Do you have a yoga friend? A friend that you've made through the yoga practice? Somebody that you share these ideas with who, when you show up to a yoga class, you put the mat down for the both of you or you hold a space. And this type of sharing is very unique. I mean, you could practice next to somebody in a yoga class, not know their name, but you practice next to them all the time, and you know if they have short or long hamstrings. You don't know if they have a sister, but you know that they like to do handstand. You get to know people in a very different and intimate way, and you're communing with people. And maybe not exactly the same as the root systems do, but there is this sharing, even though you might not be intimately knowing the other person in many ways. So the use of metaphor is very important in this essay. And metaphor is a teaching tool that you find throughout the yogic, Buddhist, spiritual literature. So we're using rooted strength, the root system, and there's many examples like this. But can you think of any more metaphors that are used within the teaching practice? One that Sri Brahmananda would often say is like the I am is like the blue sky. Perhaps you've heard the one that the student of yoga is like a lotus flower, beginning in kind of the mud and the muck in this seed form, and then eventually grows towards the light and where it is this flower without blemish. You know how the water beads on the lotus and then falls right off. What else? The mind is like a mirror. A metaphor allows us to take one thing, compare it to another, and in so doing, compress an incredible amount of meaning that we can unpack and use as a teaching tool, and that causes us to think about something like the mind or the sense of self from a different vantage point that we might not have first contemplated. And then we find different attributes because of the association that the mind reflects the world instead of imagines the world, or that we are the world. That our sense of experience, the sense of I am, is actually the world appearing on the mirror of the mind. Another metaphor. The Hatha Yoga Pradipika is full of metaphors, particularly when we get to the chapter on Nadam. The mind is likened to a snake, to a deer, and like this. So the focus was taking just one metaphor and looking at how we could really unpack something. No metaphor is perfect. It breaks down. And that's where practice comes in. You can't understand everything through metaphor. You need to have your own practice, your own satsang, your own community, and your own sense of consistency to put down those roots yourself.
Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. samasta sukhino